First. Nice. I got those ones.
Yeah, it was on Saturday, just type our. Oh, sorry. Good evening, everyone. This is a call to order for the Personnel Contracts Committee on Tuesday, May 30th, 2023 at 6 p.m. And we are currently at Central High School. We have a committee member, Mr. Traver. We have committee members, board members, Mr. Sokolovic, Ms. Casimir, Mr. Benahan, and then staff that are here with us this evening. At this moment, Mr. Traver, I would like to entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes of April 24th, 2023.
So moved.
Move second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. The second item on our agenda is presentation by Board of Education Department Director functions within the district. The first one is adult ed.
Good evening. My name is James Denton. I'm the Director of Adult Ed. I put together a brief little overview of our department and what I am responsible for. We are programming. We have adult basic education, secondary school completion, and English as a second language. Adult basic education is basically instruction for people that are below the high school level. We prep them to get into the program to get a diploma, but they're not quite there yet. We have a adult high school credit diploma program. That is, the students come and they have a prescribed plan. They meet with the guidance counselor. We look at all their transcripts. We put together a program. They take the required academic and elective credits. And when they achieve enough credits, they graduate with a diploma. Everyone, when they talk about adult ed, they immediately say GED, GED. General Education Development is one of our programs, and it is basically a testing component. And the students come in, they essentially get tutored, and they take a state test, a practice test. Once they pass the practice test, they can go take the official GED test, and when they pass that, they receive a diploma from the state of Connecticut. We also have a National External Diploma Program. That is, we basically put students in there that have more life experience and work experience, and they work on a portfolio, an assessment of the portfolio, and when they meet all the requirements, they receive a high school diploma. Those are all our high school diploma programs. Then probably our biggest group are the English as a second language. Those are the people that are not proficient in English. They come here, they learn to speak, listen, and write English. Also tied into that is our citizenship program. All of our programs, everyone gets tested with a program called CASAS, the Comprehensive Adult Student Assessment System. All the individuals that you guys normally see here in the evenings working, they're going through all the paperwork, all the processes of pre and post tests for all our students. We get evaluated on our MSGs, measurable skill gains. So our ESL students, they want to show a gain in between a pre and a post test. Our high school credit people, they want to show attainment of credits or a diploma. And then we get credit for the state gets credit when we can show the measurable skill gains. we're working towards a goal of getting all our programs testing online. So far, we have the GED and the CDP group. We tested everyone online, and our last big chunk will be the ESL group, which is the largest and, you know, the biggest piece of the puzzle. I guess we don't have a way to click this link, but all those test results and all that data goes into our program report profile, which is online with the state. And it shows the number of diplomas, it shows the number of students, it shows all that data extract, and each year it comes out. So for the one that we're referencing tonight is the 2022, because the 2023 is not complete yet, it's still being processed. Our locations. In the evenings, we're here at Central High School. We have adult basic education, high school credit diploma, ESL, and GED. During the day, we're at the Adult Learning Center. We have all the programs there, also adult basic education, high school credit diploma, ESL, GED. We have a couple satellite locations that we house in the Alliance building over on East Main Street in the afternoon. We offer a GED class and the ESL class. We have a day ESL class at Caesar Battaglia, and we have an evening GED program at the Good Shepherd Church. And our NEDP program, we cooperate with the library. We offer it from the library. All the numbers we are reporting are students that have above 12 hours. So if they don't attend at least for 12 hours, they don't make it into the data. Instructional staff. This is the biggest piece of our budget. I know there were some questions about the budget, but between all our satellites, day, night, summers, we have about 90 part-time people. We have 4 full-time teachers, non-instructional staff, 7 full-time clerical, administrative, facilitators, security, police, custodial. Employee benefits, it's one of the big lines in our grants. Training, we go to the Connecticut Adult Ed Department has a big conference every year that we send several people to. Also in there is our professional development done in-house. Purchase services, that's where all the money for the leases, utilities, the bus passes, advertisement, print, books, supplies. So that works out to a total of $5,160 per student. That's at 773 students. Everything also gets reported. We report by student and by enrollment. So one student could have 2 enrollments, sometimes even 3 enrollments. So I noted there that our ESL classes, we went to 4 nights a week of ESL instruction. So our enrollments didn't go up, but our number of students was 773. There were a lot of questions about the cooperating agreement with Fairfield, which they pay us $25,000 a year. In 2022, we had 5 students with 7 enrollments. That it's kind of like found money because we don't have to add any additional teachers, or there doesn't really present a cost to us. We can house them in the classes and the buildings we're already in. Back one, too. So for 2023, we're projecting 978 students. So we're going to drop down to $4,270 dollars per student. 17 students from Fairfield and 25 enrollments. As I noted, this is all projections because the numbers are still not finalized. The Adult Learning Center, there's been a lot of discussion about that. We have our expenses there. We have our lease, it's $130,000 a year. Our utilities were projected at about 100,000. I got some of the hard numbers on that. That projection is a little high. I don't know if it was because of the, the mild winter or whatever, but we're gonna be a little bit below that. Repairs, we had $7,450 in that repair line. I think most of that was the furnace that broke earlier in the year, and then refuse was almost $5,000. Staffing at the ALC, we have a full-time custodian and a full-time security guard. We have 4 full-time certified staff members. We have 10 part-time members. I put the plus there because we have 10 during the school year each semester, and then we also run a summer program. Then we also run a Saturday program there. So it's kind of a, it's really much more than 10 positions, but it's like at one time it's 10. 266 students, 390 enrollments approximately. A lot of my time lately has been working on the plan for the Adult Learning Center. As we discussed, there was some negotiations with the lease. We currently have a signed agreement to stay there for the short term. The long-term plan was to secure a modern building where we could move the program into. I have it listed now as the backup plan, but the initial plan was to get a centralized hub and then move all the classes out into the satellite locations, which if necessary, we may have to do that. But the fact that we have the short-term lease really, kind of put that to rest, I think. Here's some pictures from our professional development on diversity, inclusion, and equity on Valentine's Day. See a lot of the staff had red on. That's cool. We do an annual college and career and community fair, and coming out of COVID, I was really concerned, but it was a huge success this year. We had a lot of participants. Here's a list of all the schools and training programs that were here. And then these are all the employers that participated. So it was really it was a very successful event.
Thank you. I will open it up for questions for Mr. Denton. But before I do that, let the record reflect Mr. Bennington is in person. Mr. Trieber.
Yeah, let's go back to that Fairfield question.
Yes.
I remember when it came up, we weren't even focused on it, but it just popped up in a meeting. And looking at your numbers a moment ago, how much per student is our cost? Cost per student?
5,000 roughly.
About 5,000 per student, or?
This year our enrollment was up, so it dropped to four and change.
Right, but about 2,500 in your enrollment actually is projected to go up more this year, 2,700. So if they've got 17 students, that's why we think they're getting a good deal.
Oh, yeah.
So while you said it's sort of like icing on the cake for us, in fact, Fairfield is getting a bargain because they're just plugging. Are they obligated to provide that education for their people?
Yes.
So
Yes.
shouldn't we be charging them more?
Well,
Couldn't we charge them more because, they're certainly taking our staff. They have lots of money and we don't. And so it came up, as I said, just coincidentally to the discussion about the lease, but it just seems to me that at, $2,500 or $5,000, depending on how you look at it, you said it was 17, I think, students, 25 enrollments. 25 times 25 is a lot more than 25,000. 2,500 times 25. So
correct. we could, present whatever we'd like to charge them.
Seems to me that's up around $50,000 to $75,000 a year in that area. And I would assume for them, if they had incurred approximate cost what you had, they would have a lot more other costs because of the operating costs that you have to set it up and to open it up and to get themselves something up and running. So it just seems to me that when does that amount get dealt with?
When we submit the adult education grant in April, part of that is the cooperating agreement with Fairfield, that we put the amount on and they sign it and it goes into the grant.
So we've missed the boat this year?
Well, yeah, for next year, it's already submitted, but in the future, we could definitely.
Let me put it on record that we would like to explore renegotiating or just reviewing, a thorough review of that agreement before next spring and raise the issue of them ponying up a little more money to use it.
Thanks, sir. We do that.
Thanks.
All right, Ms. Cashmere, this was actually, this presentation came out of you, from you. Do you have any questions for Mr. Denton?
No, thank you for your presentation. No questions. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sokolowitz?
Yeah, the numbers on 17 students that they were charged at, actually on a 5,000, approximately 87, but I didn't do it on 42, so probably figure that's probably about $75,000. And for them to build out their own program with 17 students, it's going to be, you got to have at least a couple of staff members, and that's going to be increasing your cost. Yes, I mean, we as I know it's a grant, but these monies can be funded into our adult education to provide more services to our children and maybe perhaps expand adult education to the place where it be. But on the face, the city of Bridgeport cannot afford to subsidize the city of Fairfield. I mean, it says right here, it's got a feeling who really added this, servicing the Fairfield students does not require any additional resources. That should never be our only financial consideration. Financial consideration should also include not maximizing revenue, in my opinion.
The prior year, I think it was 5, they're up to 17, so it makes sense.
Right. Yeah, and if anything, it could be maybe to protect us on both sides, both ends, not like a low line tuition charge, but a guarantee of 25,000 to a certain number, and then everybody else pays tuition, so we don't run the risk of having 4 or 5. And question, is Fairfield the only district that utilizes our services, or do we have more?
Just Fairfield.
Just Fairfield. And what are the other districts?
Many other districts do the cooperating agreement, Trumbull and Stratford. If you go down towards Stanford, Norwalk, Weston, all those towns, we all go under one. They have a big umbrella down that way, but it's not uncommon to have cooperating agreements like that.
And do we know how much tuition they pay? Well, not tuition for one of the better word, for their cooperating agreements.
I do not know. I don't have that figure.
Right. Yeah, it would be curious to know, because if it's like a state umbrella, I'm sure it's a little more.
Yeah, I know like some districts, they take other students and they just charge them a flat fee. But this is like built into the grant, so it has to be like a lump stuff.
Right.
Mr. Benningham?
Yes, thank you much, Chair. That thing, how many students for that last year, how many percentage so that, graduate? Go up on the GED.
From the GED, last year from the GED, we had 6.7% receive a diploma. Well, the ESL, no one receives a diploma. In our credit diploma program, 31% received a diploma.
The adult education, they have, when they graduate, they keep up inspiring, I feel, a little push on where to go to community college. Or whatever, I don't know.
Yes, that is actually like the new focus with adult ed and all these work agencies. We have, we cooperate with the workplace and career resources and all those types of groups to get our students, into the next step, either into the, into a job or into school. We've had several students, by a couple of students go from the lowest level of ESL all the way up out of ESL into the credit diploma program, get a diploma, and then go on and graduate college. So yes, that is one of our goals, is to help them after they leave.
If you know, right here, they pay that kind of money. If you as a director, why you be on top of check? Or say, listen, guys, you pay less money. I want this, or you pay a little more. Listen, you have to speak with these people. They're going to pay this amount. People, we need money, and I feel like that's cheap. They pay, to be used in our facility, but you don't ever trying to bring that early, before the contract, before the year, and let them know, listen, I think that you need to pick one. That's my question for you.
I know now we're going to do that, but in the past it was, 25,000 was always the agreed upon amount. The year before it was 5 students. This year we had a little bit of an increase to 17, so it would make sense.
Thank you. No more questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Gellan. Let the record reflect he is online, but do you have any questions for this particular item?
Good evening, team. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question. Forgive me if you answered this already. How much is the grant amount annually?
It was 2022. It was 3,980,000.
And do we use annually on average, or say for 2022, 2023, did we use the entire amount of the grant?
Yes.
Money on the table.
No,
Yes.
we used the grant. There is a way to make a grant revision at the end of the year in March. So if there is a line item, like I said, the utilities, if it was, under budgeted, we can move that into another account where it's needed. But Ms. Siegel's very good at making sure we spend all our money.
To your knowledge, do you know if any Bridgeport residents were turned away from the program, and Fairfield students accepted?
No, I don't. I mean, we have our ESL classes fill up. Like here at night, we have to turn people away just because our classes are full and we don't have the teachers to start another class. So there are people that get put on a waiting list. And then when students, if someone fails to show, we replace them. But I do not know of an example where, a Fairfield student came in and a Bridgeport person was turned away. It's feasible, but I don't know of an example.
To your knowledge, do you know if Bridgeport students are chosen first, and then Fairfield students, or are they both equally accepted during enrollment?
They would all be accepted, more or less first come, first serve.
Any further questions?
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
When you're done, if
Okay.
you first, right?
I I think my question was kind of answered. I think Mr. Kolovic gave me a little clarity, so I'll defer to you.
But let me just ask, we've been bandying back and forth, and they're obviously two different amounts. Which is the more appropriate, per student or per enrollment? I mean, generally,
Well,
if you're gonna be taking a course, that would be per enrollment, because that's what enrollment means, right? Per course, basically.
Yeah, the state obviously reports both. I like to say per student because last year we used to do ESL classes Monday, Wednesdays, Tuesday, Thursdays.
Right.
So it used to be the same students, but they would sign up for 2 sessions. So it would be 2 enrollments.
Yeah.
In order to get more hours of instruction and to provide more opportunity to pre and post test to get our measurable skill gains, we went to 4 nights, 1 class, 4 nights. So our enrollments didn't really go up that much, even though our students did, because it was just, instead of 2 classes, Monday to Thursday, it's 1 class. So that's why I would say the students I was kind of presenting.
And then, going back to Mr. Gallen's question, if a student from Fairfield then applied to the ESL program prior to a student from Bridgeport, then there would be a displacement.
Yes, it's possible.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I assume there were students from Fairfield taking ESL.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, that's,
All right, Mr. Sokolovic?
Yeah, question. You mentioned sometimes people got to be turned away due to no staff.
Yes.
How is staff paid?
They're paid hourly.
They're paid hourly.
Yeah, in the evening.
And would you say that the hourly rate might be too low to attract?
I think we pay them pretty good. It's more of, the ESL instructors are a shortage area. And we need, to run the class and to report the data, we need certified teachers to put the class under. We don't report into Power School, we report into another system through the state called LACES. So if our classes, when they're built up in there, they're not assigned to a certified teacher, red flag, and they call from the state. So it's important that we have certified staff, and we did increase the pay for the evening teachers, and the ESL people just aren't out there.
I'm wondering if, since some of these classes are the day, we can't draw on our own staff because of the daytime. What about like the evening classes and the Saturdays? So our staff mostly.
Yes.
Get stipend.
Yeah, we have a lot of full-time staff that work in the evenings, and according to the BEA contract, they have the first right to the jobs.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Denton, for presenting. And just for the record, any parent that is interested in enrolling into these classes, please look on our district website or reach out to Mr. Denton's Board of Ed email address for further instruction. All right. Oh, let the record reflect Ms. Parent is also in the meeting.
Thank you.
No problem.
thank you, Mr. Gallen.
The next department is IT. Mr. Jeff.
One second. Great. Everybody should be able to see that.
Mhm.
Here we go. Hi, I'm Jeff Poslowski. I am the Director of Information Technology Services for the Bridgeport Public School Districts. This evening I'll be giving a presentation on our department. So, next slide. So just a little bit about me. I have been the director here since 2017, and I have a bachelor's of science in computer science and networking. And then also I have a master's of computer information technology, master's of science that is. And so I've spent the vast majority of my career in education, and I'm entering my 7th scholastic year here at BPS. That's the what's your. You want to see work right here? Yeah. Okay. So a little bit about the presentation structure. So what I wanted to go over is just mission and goals of ITS. I'm going to talk about what we do, and then basically, who are we, so that you can kind of put faces to names. And then I'm just do a quick comparison to peer district that we have, so you can compare apples to apples, and then just a brief review of our accomplishments in the scholastic year. So the mission statement, and I am going to read it verbatim just because it's easier. It's the mission statement of Bridgeport Public Schools ITS department is to support the academic mission of the districts. And so I want to just take a pause by saying that our number one goal is the kids, and making sure that they have what they need. And what's critical is obviously that, first and foremost. But obviously we develop and maintain the district technology and infrastructure. So that would be an example of the wireless, our Teams environment, stuff that essentially we use on a daily basis to run the districts. Everything from your accounts to your email addresses, things of that nature. And then we basically identify and respond to evolving needs in the district through collaboration and innovation. So that basically means that technology changes all the time, literally every day. I mean, from AI becoming the next big thing that we're having to deal with, in that frontier, to just basically all of the different types of technology, whether it's curriculum, new onboarding and different things, connecting any different type of system that basically requires integration. That's a continuous effort. A lot of people think that once stuff is up and running, it just kind of runs and it does its thing. But believe it or not, it is a 24/7 operation, which then leads us to the final part of the mission statement, which is that obviously we spend a substantial amount of time troubleshooting and fixing the things that get broken. And hardware, software. And so we are literally end-to-end everything as it relates to technology. Any questions on that piece at all? Okay. So our goals as a department is, operational equity. So the technology resources that we've been afforded either through the funding of ESSER or through district funds or through ECF. It's really important that we're being equitable and that we're providing, as best as humanly possible, that type of equity in relation to usage of the devices, accessibility to technology. And so again, our response as it relates to innovation, we constantly work with our stakeholders to find out what it is that we can do to do a better job of providing technology services. And what's critical to understand is that what one person's view of that, may be one thing, another person may have a completely separate view. And so we kind of have to find a common ground. So that happens on a continual basis, especially when it comes to providing, so many different platforms. We manage in excess of 100+ platforms right now, which is, that kind of keeps growing differently. And the key thing for our department is to make it so that it's, you know, universal access for all. So what does that really mean? It means that if you are a super, you know, tech whiz, all the way down to somebody who has very little experience, we want to make it so it's accessible to everybody, children, obviously faculty, staff, because the whole point of technology is to act as a tool, right? Like we want it to help you do a job. If it's harder to use or if it requires more effort, then it's not really a very good tool. So, you know, we strive to do that on a continual basis by unifying all of our platforms and having everything in a stance where it's essentially equitable and accessible. And then one of the key, you know, aspects of any technology department is obviously, you know, device and system lifecycle. So that means that we reported laptops and different devices and iPads. And so it's our job to track and maintain and make sure that those devices are cared for, they're upgraded, they're secure. When they break, we fix them. But a lot of times what people don't think about it is when you get a device, you know, the life cycle really starts right before then, because we have to buy that device, we have to get the device set up, we have to make sure the device is ready, we have to ensure that it, you know, we follow physical asset control. And so, and I won't bore you with all the details of life cycle, but basically at the end of the day, that life cycle takes a substantial amount of time for us to do. Now, right now, we maintain roughly 26,000 users, and so we typically use that number because it represents, you know, the student, the faculty, staff, part-time and full-time, because we support them and our vendors, and 33,000 devices. Now, that number is probably even higher than that, but it's the number we typically use because it is essentially describing all of the endpoint devices like laptops, iPads, servers, all those different things, everything that we have to touch or maintain. So that's a lot. And there's a ton of those. And then obviously, most important thing is we manage physical locations. So that means that, you know, everything from our place in City Hall to, you know, the Bridgeport Regional Center, I apologize for what the acronym is for it, to facilities, to the schools. We're in all of those buildings maintaining all of that infrastructure, so it's a lot. So we have more children and staff than Hartford does, but they have more locations than we do, but our locations are bigger than theirs, so that's why it's kind of, you know, it's a cross between the two. So I provided the org chart just to see a full view of it. So if you have deeper questions to that, you can ask them, but I'm going to break it down into a little bit easier way to understand it. So ITS management team is obviously made up of myself and then our new hire that replaced Nick Fusco. I think all of you remember Nick. He's been in all the meetings. Nick obviously, you know, moved on to another opportunity, and so we've recently hired Erin. Erin comes to us from Park City Homes, which she maintained 32 sites at Park City Homes, and pretty much the same type of infrastructure that we had. So she, you know, brings years of experience with that. And we have Terrell Serrano, who is the ITS department facilitator, and so he basically assists in facilitating operations. So that can be anything from, you know, having equipment sent out or received, or working with staff members to ensure things happen, responding to demands. And so my role as the director is to help those two areas to basically work together in harmony, and then obviously deal with all the external stuff outside of the districts. And, you know, within our global sphere. So now ITS is broken into 3 different divisions. And this is a classic design that you find in most organizations, where we have our academic support team, also known as the AST, which I'm sure you've heard about many times. The academic support team is a dedicated team of teachers on special assignment, TOSAs, that essentially provide direct intervention for the kids. I'll go into that in a minute. And then we have the district infrastructure operations team, which again is related to the infrastructure district. When I get to that area, I'll go into a little bit deeper on that. And then user services, which is the one I'm going to be talking about in a moment, is essentially provides the type of services where they engage directly with the users and they work with, the board. As you can see, Sam is here. He's part of user services. So I'll go into a little bit of greater detail for that. So again, management with 3 divisions. All right. So the academic support team, Jen Russell, who is from the academic support team, is champion of our teams here also this evening. So hi, Jen. I can't speak enough positive, words about the academic support team. We would not be able to do what it is that we do without them. They are our direct engagement to our academic, life in the district, and essentially, working with teachers, working with students, directly integrating technology. I apologize. And so what I would say is that you would think of them almost in the way that user services works on equipment as, the academic support team is to actually engage in that. So we call that academic integration. Some districts call it that. But really what it is it's making it so that technology is usable, obtainable, and helpful in the process of teaching, right? So if we get a new product like our Promethean boards, Jen and her peers, and with Promethean, for the past 18 months almost, have been providing training and engagement to get the teachers to use these devices to their fullest potential. We've spent, so much time working on ClassLink and Office 365 and Teams and all those different products, and that academic perspective and that engagement and all of the work that we do as a department forward facing with academics, comes through them. So that's the AST. Now, this is a brief slide that the AST put together. Literally, there are so many things that they do that I wouldn't be able to fit it on a slide. But one of the key things I'd like to highlight is from that is the idea of training. So the AST, provides training, but they also provide booked training, which means that a teacher can actually have them come in and do a co-taught lesson. They're currently working right now on performing integration with our maker spaces. So for those who are not aware, we're in the process of basically deploying in accordance with new computer science standards, maker spaces or technology spaces in all the schools that take advantage of a whole host of different things, from 3D printing to large format printing, virtual reality, all of the different things that the children can be exposed to, this while they're, at the elementary level, and then specialized labs when they get into high school level. So there's a lot of exciting things that, they're doing. And if there's any questions later, I can talk about it. But there's a shorter list of what they don't do. All right. Now, every year we hold, it's not the second annual, so hopefully continue to hold a district technology showcase. This was the most recent one that we just had a couple weeks ago. Last week, thank you. So time flies. And so this was held, the most recent one, at Fairchild Wheeler campus. And we had a great turnout from the staff. This is the time where the staff really gets the opportunity to come in and showcase what they're doing with academic technology. So it's teachers showcasing what they can do to other teachers and then working together to collaborate. So it's obviously a thing that we would like to continue doing. And it's been a great event both times we've had it so far. And we informally had one the year before, but it was, kind of different with COVID. Okay. All right, now on to user services. So user services is the also unbelievably important in our district operations. These are the people that go out and directly fix and address and remediate every imaginable problem with all of the end user technology. Again, end user technology being cell phones, because we support, I can't even tell you how many cell phones, tens of thousands of iPads and laptops and devices and printers. And so these 5 folks right here are our entire team that does that right now. And we would not be able to function without them, because basically they are the lifeblood of, what happens out in the schools. Next slide. And so this doesn't even begin to describe all the things that they do, but I like to classify it and quantify it in a way that kind of makes sense. So obviously, everybody is familiar with the fact that we have computers. So computers or traditional laptops, things of that nature, is an entire classification of device that we maintain. We also do Macs. We do, just about every type of desktop, laptop type scenario. We don't have any Chromebooks anymore, thankfully. So, we're unified on our platform across the district, which is great. That includes things as, such as scanners and cameras and, any type of device where somebody might be engaging with it. They support that. And they just completed our largest deployment in the history of districts, replacing every single staff workstation, faculty workstation with a hybrid device with docking station. And then we are just about finishing up our admin installs, which means we replaced every administrative function computer. And then we're making our way to specialized areas next. Well, it's the largest deployment we've ever had in the districts. That's a huge milestone. And then mobile devices, which includes the Promethean board, which isn't super mobile, if you can imagine. The Promethean boards are essentially Android devices, which is classified as a mobile device. But we maintain literally hundreds and hundreds of devices of that class. And so that takes an inordinate amount of time. Deployments. Right now, we are, again, in the process of doing a significant amount of deployments. And so we are also going to be deploying stack devices to address the areas that haven't been addressed or haven't yet gotten those devices, because we've literally just gotten them in. And so as part of, and that's why they show the life cycle picture right there, that's all part of the life cycle, taking the old device in, determining if we're going to use it again, and then putting it out there. But I want to highlight one really important thing. We don't waste anything here. Every single thing that we have, we squeeze every last ounce of life out of it to get the most bang for our buck and ROI for the things that we buy. There are other places where, they're like, oh, it's a certain amount of years old and they just throw it away. We can't afford to do that. And so this is really important that I highlight this. This is the team, Sam and all of the folks that are in user services, they really work really hard to make that possible. And that is something that's worth highlighting, because as we enter into a period of time where we're out of ESSER and COVID money, that's more important than ever, because we have to make these things last. So I just want to make sure I point that out. And then obviously BreakFix. So BreakFix being broken, you fix it. Okay, so this is the district infrastructure operations team. So again, Aaron is our new hire for that area. Jeff is one of our newer hires. I think just about everybody has either talked to Brian at some point in time. He has literally been here forever. And Sam McIntyre has been here for a very long time, so has Carmen. So there are ITS staff that have been here longer than I've been here. They are a lot of times unsung heroes, because they are working behind the scenes to run all of our systems. So just a little brief overview on what that is. So DIO, or District Infrastructure Operations, which was just recently renamed from Data Center Operations because we're now including other areas that quite frankly didn't exist before. So District Infrastructure Operations, they maintain all the networking, all the internet, wireline services. So that means literally the copper in the walls for everything, telephones, access points, everything. And we are our own telephone provider. A lot of people don't know that we are literally our own telephone provider. We're our own internet provider, which is, because that's how big we are. We are not like a smaller organization where you go to like Comcast or whatever. We are literally our own provider. And so as an example, if something goes down, we don't call Comcast and say we need help. We literally dispatch our own technicians to do that. So the cloud services and servers that we have, the district has 2 data centers. One is our East Data Center, and that is at Harding High School, and one is our West Data Center, which is located in VLC Sheridan, which is scheduled for placement, hopefully in the near future. And essentially, that whole thing, cloud services and servers, I could spend hours talking about that. That is, we do so many things there. The short version of the story is that when you plug your computer in or you plug in your phone or any device that you have, all the services that it takes to make the internet work, security, filtering for the children, making sure that we're, in legal compliance with all of the alphabet laws that we have. That is literally what that area is. And then I talked a little bit about telecommunications, but obviously Cisco Voice and Microsoft Teams. And then finally, we also run, so school security is in charge of the camera system, but we are the actual entity that runs, maintains, and handles all of that stuff. So we're talking about poles out on the street that actually get camera feeds that are for what are called our state corridor cameras. We contract with Sonatrol through Captain Breck's area, but all the way out to there, all the way in, we maintain those things. And then the biggest thing that we are making a significant effort, especially right now in post-COVID, is cybersecurity. We're making a gigantic push to implement and to deploy as many services as possible, including things like multi-factor authentication and the thing where you text and you get a PIN to be able to log in. I mean, we're implementing all those things all over the place to protect our infrastructure. This is our temporary ITS staff. They are basically provided to us right now through KDS. And so it's important to note that that's funded through ESSER ARP. Right now, Kanai is our help desk person. So if you call the help desk right now, and so either it's 1193 or 1114, Kanai will answer, and he is there all day long. That's what he does. And then our team for field logistics, Kareem and Earl are wonderful people that go around and basically are migrating equipment from one place to another, making sure the kids have what they need for stock, making sure that any devices that we do get rid of, that we're performing proper decommissioning. They're phenomenal people that obviously do a great job, and they help us to keep that going. Ken Hunter works as part of the DIO division, and he is literally performing the work of deploying the access points and addressing. He joins us from Verizon for 25 years, so he's retired and is now doing that, and he's been an amazing asset to the team as well. So I just wanted to put a comparison here. So Norwalk Public Schools is roughly, last I checked, I think they're 2/3 our size. So they have, this is their staff listing as an example, for comparison from our staff size to theirs. So we have a total of 11.5 staff members, 11 full-time, and then Carmen Porto, who is the webmaster, is part-time. So said that correctly. So that's just an example. They have a similar design in terms of that. So it's an example. And then I wanted to just talk a little bit about recent accomplishments that we're very proud of. I'm unbelievably proud of the team. I can't sing praises enough of them. I mean, they have been through so much, especially, you know, sometimes during COVID, we were working till like 3 o'clock in the morning on some days. I mean, literally 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, and Nick, who isn't here anymore, but he and I did that as well. But so our one-to-one laptop program and the iPad program we have, so that everybody understands how and what way that works. There were 2 fund sources that made that possible. The first one was the Connecticut partnership with Dalio. So every Dell computer that we have everywhere was provided to us from that. They literally, no exaggeration, delivered them to us. So they had only done the high schools. And myself and a couple other people literally begged, and I mean begs, the state of Connecticut and said, we need devices for, you know, the other kids too, because we just don't have them. So, you know, after talking with, you know, the chief performance officer of the state of Connecticut, they said that between, you know, us and a couple, like another one that was basically like, we need this, they decided as part of the rest of the money to do that. So I'm very proud to say that because of that, we had enough devices during COVID to be able to support all of those areas and continue to use them to this day. And then the other funding sources that we have, and I realized I should have put ECF there too, so I make sure I say that. So ARP and ESSER, obviously the money that was provided by the federal government, but all of the Lenovo devices that we have, anyway, that was provided by ECF, which is known as the Emergency Connectivity Funds. That was life-changingly instrumental to us here. They paid for all of the iPads in the second round, and then all of our devices that the younger kids were using in the middle school. So that is separate money from obviously ARP ESSER, and we're hoping, you know, if everything goes according to plan, that we'll also get reimbursed, you know, barring the unforeseen for some of that. So that's you know, a huge thing. But it's really important to understand that in order for a one-to-one laptop program to function, we have to hold people accountable. We have to make sure that stuff is done. And with our teams in the schools and in the office, knock on wood, so far we've been able to do that. So very proud of that. And those last couple of things, the computer replacements. By the time we're done, as long as everything goes according to plan, every old computer everywhere in the entire district will be gone. All of the labs will have been completely replaced. In most cases, they almost are completely replaced. There's only a couple that haven't been. And the new creator spaces will replace labs that had gone defunct and are now being brought back to life as maker spaces, again, to be in compliance with the STEM and Connecticut Initiative for Computer Science. And so that's a huge accomplishment. I mean, just gigantic. And I'm very proud of the team for making that possible, and our partners at the schools, SysOps, et cetera, because without all of them, just wouldn't be possible. And we've already heard a bit about the academic integrations, but the list is so long of academic integrations that they've been doing. I mean, Dr. Jenkins can list like 10 of integrations we've done that make it so that the children have access to their curriculum. And then finally, the Promethean board project. One of the biggest issues we had in the entire district for the longest time was the fact that our smart boards were dying in droves. So as of right now, we have 5-year warranty on every Promethean board everywhere in the entire district, and they have all been replaced everywhere. And there's a couple of places that we found that, you know, were not on the original list, but I had prepared in case there were like places that they brought life back into. So knock on wood, at least for the foreseeable future, we're on track for that. So that kind of wraps up our accomplishments.
Thank you. So I'll go around and see if board members have any questions for you, Mr. Trooper.
I mean, no, I mean, it's just.
I know it's a lot, I'm sorry.
No, I actually admire the fact that at the beginning you said, any questions on this part? And I thought, oh, that's good, he's gonna piece it, he's gonna parse it.
I was
And then
trying to.
As
yeah.
you were going, you just got on a roll and I didn't want to interrupt. And it was
Oh,
like,
I'm sorry. No, please.
No, we don't tend to do that, and particularly with a big report like this.
Yeah.
It's like so much, and I just begin, you know, I'm like 3 years behind the times, so.
And I can go
Begin
back.
to appreciate what you were saying about the changeover and what you've done, and that 7 years, a lot went on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So, no, well, I guess let me just ask, the Prometheus,
Yep.
Prometheus. So you're saying you've installed those over the last 18 months,
Yes.
and basically 18, 5 years out from whenever they came in, we're good for that.
That's
So
correct. Yep.
Sometime until 27, 28, we're good on having those.
Well, I'm gonna knock on wood and say that they're supposed to be good for 10 to 12 years, but I'm not gonna jinx myself. And so 5 years.
I wasn't, but you used the reference of 5 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Guaranteed?
Oh, yeah. These all have a warranty for 5 years.
5 years, right. No, I'm not saying that they'll die, but I'm just saying, we know that we've got a guarantee. So that's good.
Yep.
Looking at the cliff, what gets us
Yeah.
past the cliff. And when you say that, we've hit that point of being able to give everybody one-on-one, which is again impressive, because I remember parsing together packages, they hand out Chromebooks at the beginning of COVID.
That's right.
And getting kids in to get them. Do we have a surplus for growth
Yes. Yes, we do.
built into that? And, how much of a surplus do we have? Because we seem to be growing in a healthy way these days.
So when I say surplus, what I would say is that we have enough right now based upon our damage and break rate to be able to maintain within the same time frame. Hopefully, I don't want to jinx myself, but for the next several years, because what we've built into it is obviously we have the damage, if the device gets damaged or broken, those fees go into the account. And then what we do is as we need to, we buy the replacement parts for those things, but we also have new on-hand stock so that we can rotate. And so this is where the life cycle part comes in. So if the device comes back to us physically broken or something happened to it, we're able to take that device, and we get the child, a device so that they're ready to go, but we're able to take that, refurbish that, put that back out in production. And so we keep pipelining it so it keeps going in a circle forever. And obviously, like with anything, there will be a time where that won't be possible anymore with the fleet. But, my hope is that when you get closer to that time frame, when that happens, we can have the discussion so we don't get to that point. But again, funding and the financial cliff, that's kind of like the worst time we have that conversation. So, but our CFO has been tremendous in with superintendent support on all the different endeavors that we've been doing. So I would say for right now, knock on wood, we're where we need to be. Yes, and it's it's key that that we continue doing our because that's why when I say one-to-one program, when we say it's one device to one kid, that means the accountability of one-to-one, and it makes it controllable. Whereas in the old days, it was like, here's a cart of devices and, whatever happens, happens. So now we say, all right, well, this device was damaged there. And that's how all districts, especially large urban districts, to be successful, that's how we do it. So anyway.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Any other questions?
Yeah, you started with this tease about AI.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And how serious an immediate problem is this?
Unfortunately, it is a huge immediate problem. You're asking a very lovely question, but
And I'm not looking for an extended discussion, but I just wondered, since you raised it at the onset, I hearken back to Stephen Hawkins' statement that was his greatest fear.
So I would say this, it is literally evolving, and this is not an exaggeration, second by second. What we have seen, especially in our platform, what we use O365, OpenAI and ChatGPT, as they call it, are already integrated to our product line. And so what we have to do, and the academic support team, and we've had some very heated conversations about this. We have no choice but to accept that it's here. what we have to do is like, exactly, like with any tool, we have to make sure that we can't just ignore it and pretend like it's not there. You know what I mean? So we have to say, okay, our kid's going to start asking you to write stuff for them. And thankfully, there are tools that we have available in our platform in O365 that allow us to be able to say that was generated by AI. And so our hope is, and this is where the AST and then help through user services, we're going to work with people to make sure that they understand that they have the tools to combat that type of stuff. But I mean, it's funny, the Council of Greater Cities School Districts, and then the other one, part of the one for Connecticut, this is a huge topic of conversation because they're like, oh, my students are now writing stuff using AI. How do we figure this stuff out? And so it's buzzing, and I would say stay tuned is the best way to say it.
Within that, since I know from discussions with teachers for years, the use of the internet period for kids to, not plagiarize.
Yeah.
Is huge. And now I would assume that, again, my limited knowledge that AI makes everything much more difficult. But if you have a program that can ascertain if something used AI to write it, do you also have a program that can ascertain if somebody is copying the internet? So yes, as a matter of fact, we implemented that. I don't know if they're currently still using it, but we did have it definitely here at Central. I'm trying to remember what the other schools were, but yes, so there is a program that is provided, and it's literally escaping me right now. Turn it in. And so Turn It In is a service that's integrated into Teams. So, and it works with our other stuff that we have. And so a faculty member could literally take a piece of work that was provided by a student, and it will go and it will check to see if it's been plagiarized. It will literally tell them, and it will also provide the citations. The newer version of Turn It In, right? The newer version of Turn It In is, I must need to stop sharing. There we go. Better? Sorry about that. People want it is going to start to have those AI feature sets built into it where you will be able to put it in, and it not only will be able to check if it's something that is a first source material, but now it'll also look at it and it looks at, it's an algorithm that basically reads the way the words are written and see if that cadence is something that was generated by AI. So. As a fourth grade teacher, that was always relatively easy.
Yeah, copy and paste.
When their English shifted from a fourth grade English to a 9th to 10th grade.
That was a pretty good dead giveaway or something.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Mr. Sakota, any questions?
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah. Whatever you need, I'm here.
Can you give us a little history lesson from when we started in 2017?
Yep.
You keep mentioning a one-on-one district. What were we then?
So we were more of what's classically known as a cart-based district, or shared device-based district, which means that schools that had the funding would essentially purchase equipment in their own budget. In that time frame, I think it was during the Vallis time frame, they had also purchased the Samsung Chromebooks. Yeah. And so what that would mean is that those devices were assigned to a cart, and it was then up to the teacher to account for and to monitor the cart and to say, okay, this cart has this damage. But the problem is with that methodology, as we saw in spades all over the place, is that the teacher's ability to monitor the devices, if student number one is taking that device out of the cart and, breaks it and then puts it back, and student number two gets that device, then what ends up happening is how do you hold them accountable? How do you prove that? And we had damage rates that were extraordinary, unfortunately. Following our new model and way we have, I don't want to say eradicated that, but we have made unbelievable strides to address that.
Right, but what I'm really getting at is, were we a 1 to 2 district, 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5?
Oh, we're 1 to 1.
No, before.
Oh, but you want me to do that? Oh,
Just
God.
to guess them.
Could I, as an example, the administrators at Blackham got a grant to get one cart in each classroom. So when I returned to the classroom, we had one cart, I had 30 Chromebooks, and each student had a number, and each student had an assigned Chromebook within that class. At Batavia, at the same time, the fourth grade team had one cart class. So that was 5 classes sharing 30
Okay.
computers. So they each had 6 computers to a class, Chromebooks to a class, if you will. So it really is all over.
And that's where the shared mentality comes up, is that because it's not a person to a device. And so like, we had places like Harding where they needed to use them on a continual basis. You know, they had issues where they didn't have enough to do like standardized testing. And, you know, it was bad. And so
You're raising a classroom with multiple, I'm talking about self-contained classes.
Yeah.
You're talking about a teacher who's got 4 or 5 classes coming in to use those Chromebooks every day.
yeah,
So now, I asked that question because of fiscal cliff, because of historic underfunding of our schools. Several years seems like a short amount of time, but I fear going back to those days.
me too. I'm not gonna lie, but it's a scenario where I can say the following, if I may, if that's okay. Is that we've teed ourselves up to be the best possible success we can with what we have, and just like every magic carpet ride, it comes to an end. And what I would look at it is that we'll be able to forecast that and be able to see, because we'll be able to see what's called the drop dead rate of the devices. And so as we, it's, I don't want to say it's exponential, but it's a curvature where the more time that happens, the more damage that happens. And as long as we're following our procedures, policies, and plans, it'll become jagged. It's when we don't follow them, what ends up happening is it sharply inclines. And so I'm hoping that, from the stock that we have in hand and the collections that we've been doing and what we have in terms of preparing them, that we are good. But unfortunately, I can't see the future much beyond that,
Yeah, now, you talk about placing, breakage, and what have you. What about obsolescence?
So thankfully, one of the nice things about our fleet right now is because we're a Microsoft shop, we don't have the problems that other districts have with Chromebooks dying after 5 years. When we had our Chromebooks, they literally self-destruct. They're designed to they call it the support cycle of Google. And so what would happen is the Chromebooks would stop being supported after a period of time that was defined, and then we couldn't use them for standardized testing or anymore. With our current devices and our Microsoft platform and all of our stuff, we can literally run them into the ground until they basically die, and we do not have that problem. That has already saved us in spades again, money, time, because even before COVID, we were a Microsoft shop, and that to this day is paying dividends because we're able to take those devices that were gotten before COVID and flip them, and we're using those as loaner devices in scenarios. So it just shows the pace.
You compared Norwalk and Bridgeport.
Yeah, that was just
Yeah,
show.
so they have, it's a good show. They got they got approximately 27, I don't know, I just counted online, 27 staff members for IT, opposed to our 11.5.
Yep.
The district, it's 2/3 the size of Bridgeport. Is there industry standards of IT to technology ratios, and what would the ideal ratio?
I do. We were actually asked by Hartford because they did the same thing. So it really depends on what's known as your use of support model. So are you asking me what the proper staffing size is?
Correct.
So I would say that in a scenario like this, with the sizing that we have, I mean, if you're comparing apples to apples, it should be somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 to 70, but that's obviously not attainable. So, I mean, that's why, I'm happy to have the staff that we have and hopefully keep them that way.
We should have to. Like there's periods like we got our fingers crossed on a lot of things, and I would love to be able to buy cutting edge technology, have the amount of support we need, but the funding rounds are stolen. Guess that's the
Yeah,
difference.
and the shared issue that we all have as a district is obviously sustainability and funding. I mean, every person helps, and, you know, I would just say that it's good to know where we lie with our peers so that when you're making that case to, you know, the funding entities at the state level and that, and if you say, you know, there's clearly issues as it relates to that, that's been said here innumerable times about the funding. It helps to illustrate the point, you know.
Your final question. You mentioned additional maker spaces and STEM labs and stuff.
Yes.
Like, according to this new state guidelines.
Yeah, exactly.
Are those funded?
Oh, no, that's definitely not.
So that's,
My knowledge.
that sounds like a very expensive unfunded mandate.
Yeah, please don't quote me on this, but I would say that, so the state of Connecticut standard for computer technology, I forget what the exact acronym is, where they have set the guidelines and standards as they are supposed to be. They provide a time frame for that. I think that's obviously a shared need for all the districts to deal with. So when we say unfunded mandate, I mean, that's, you know, that's a,
Okay,
you know.
will you have to purchase, sorry, will you have to purchase additional materials you would not have purchased, but for these new guidelines?
So in my humble opinion, I would say yes, but that would be where I would turn to the academic people. And I would say, you know, as it relates to what is being demanded in the curriculum and what they're stating, you know, they would be a better guide of that than me. So my point would be that in order for us to do an adequate job, we would need to have the appropriate infrastructure and technology to support it no matter what. And then anything we do, like coding and, you know, robotics and all that stuff, you know, that's something that is obviously additional. And, you know, as the curriculum calls for it, at least now with the way we've deployed everything, they have that one full set at each school. So that helps.
Right, yeah, that's not a question particular to the department, because we got that in ELL, we got a couple of, I mean, they like to legislate, like, feel good issues, but they don't put money behind it. Yeah, you know, there's anything else. Thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Bennigan?
Yes.
How much is your budget in your department?
So I would have to pull that up if you want me to give the exact number.
You have maybe
I would say that I would have to pull it up to guess. So because of COVID and the ESSER and ARP money, I've been obviously focusing on addressing those expenditures in terms of our normal operating budget. We've been spending as we have for the past. I mean, we haven't really changed anything with that. So I can find out from the CFO to get the exact number.
I know you said, and you answered one of your questions with advice, and you very occasion, stuff like that.
Yep.
How many staff do you have in your department?
Right now? For which particular division?
I'm talking like,
The whole thing?
yeah.
So the head count right now, obviously not including myself, is 11.5. So FNS, Food and Nutrition Services, has one head count that is dedicated to their department, and so that's one of the additional head counts. So if you include that one and myself, I believe it's 13 or 14. So I can do the math and tell you exactly. Like, you want to do the math? Okay. $18.5. So I'm forgetting somebody.
Also, and some faculty don't have one office. You know, they have a room. They are the computers that are updated.
Yeah, so if there's any computers that we find not, we update. And for the PAC and PTS rooms, all the ones that were identified, we address those ones.
I know you said something about the cameras, and you guys provide like a fix if something's wrong, right?
So the way it works is Lieutenant Grech and his team are in charge of physical cameras, pointing to the cameras, and their department funds the license to run that, which is called Milestone. ITS basically does all of the other stuff. We run Milestone, we run all the underlying operating, stuff that it has, storage, basically everything. So they kind of handle, the blocking and the maintaining part. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I understand that, but that's probably part of the budget. Anything happens, that's coming from the budget. But then to pay the BOE.
That's a good question. So the answer to that is so if we're talking before COVID, I did what I could to make sure I could fit whatever I could in ITS budget. And if not, I went to at the time Lieutenant, now Captain Grech, and would say, hey, we really need to buy these things. And he would do everything he could to accommodate those requests. And he's been amazing to work with. And so he would go out and he would get grants for school security. And so what we had been doing on a continual basis was addressing the schools in bunches that he could get in the grant. So that's how we kind of kept it together. And then now, as part of our enhancements to our infrastructure and all the other stuff, we've been able to wrap that together under one roof. Obviously, as we go forward in time, we're going to ride on that investment for as long as we possibly can. But it's one of those scenarios where there will be a day where we go back to that model of, obviously being, not necessarily having that. But Lieutenant, sorry, I keep saying that. Captain Grech is, yeah, let me say Lieutenant for so long. Captain Grech is, is a rock star in that arena and has made a lot of possible things possible. So. I'm sorry, what was that?
He's in charge for the security cameras inside and outside the school. Any issues on it, something has to be fixed there.
Yes. So what will happen, an example, if a camera out on the street, that's part of the corridors isn't working, because we have ones that are literally all over the place, like here, they're out there. What will happen is typically they'll contact us and say, hey, this is broken. And then we'll go and take a look at it and we'll say, this is a problem with the antenna or whatever. And so he'll take care of those things with Sonatrol. Typically, if it's on premise or in the building, if he need to go and physically touch the stuff to fix it, we're happy to do that. But he funds the replacement of the cameras as of right now. In his budget, or that's kind of our agreement that they're doing the camera part of it. We're doing like the everything else part of it.
I mean, the camera, he has to pay.
That is correct, yes.
Let's say if the camera was blurry, what's in charge of that?
That would be Sonatrol. Sonatrol would go and they would touch, they would like go up on a ladder and point it. I mean, sometimes we help with that.
Some schools, they have that issue.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I mean, and
I can tell you that they don't try to so blurry, you cannot see the person coming down, coming out.
And one of the key issues with that is Lieutenant Captain Grech, sorry, has been working, because we literally have like 1,500 cameras. That's actually, I mean, that we look with, it's at least 1,500. And so not every camera has been upgraded to digital yet because there's just so many of them. So in scenarios where they're blurry or whatever, but that's all on the roadmap. He has that planned out, so.
You guys, I see Candy, right? Candy, the help desk. Urgent.
Okay, can I? Yeah.
Can I, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying.
It's okay.
Why did it say temporary in the top when you do the presentation?
Because I wanted to make sure I drew the distinction. So right now, the funding for those positions is paid for through ARPS, or like many of the other similar types of positions in the district. And so what happens is obviously when that funding ends, those people will no longer be able to work because they're not in our permanent budget cycle. So we'll have to figure out how to absorb that into the budget that we have. But I'm very happy to have them for as long as we can. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I'm realistic with stuff like that.
I understand. I know this happened whenever and stuff like that, and this is something that they come in the table, and we heard that. But I just want to know, I know 2 years ago, the mayor said they're going to give 2,000 device, so Bridges School. Did you give that?
He did, yes. So, that was that purchase was, part of the, what's it called? Before we received any money from ARP ESSER and, before Dalio, that was actually before all of that stuff. What we had done was we had done a cost sharing thing where, the city of Bridgeport generously paid, that part, and then we paid the other part as, you know, per what Mr. Testani wanted. And so I think they paid, I want to say $1 million and we paid $1 million or something like that. It's something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was to basically get devices in the hands of the children before there was any funding of any kind. So, and those devices are used to this day as loaner devices out there.
You guys heard, you know, one of the bikes that's the family using the laptop.
Yep.
And you guys know exactly how many years, maybe when they're going to expire or when they're going to be not
So
doing very well.
So the good news is, and this is, and I want to definitely say this, thankfully, the way our stuff is architected, there is no end of life. It's not like a Chromebook or another device like that. We can literally run the device till it explodes. I mean, like that's how long they can go for it. I mean, what is that time frame? As an example, Fairchild Wheeler, when Fairchild Wheeler opened in 2013, they got devices that before, you know, we obviously got that money, they had been running them for like 8 or 9 years. So that's why that model works so well for us, is because we get our bang for our buck, you know what I mean? And so hopefully, you know, we are able to keep the fleet running as long as possible. Every investment that was made, not only now, but, you know, through the pandemic and COVID, was with investment and longevity in mind, because we don't know if there will ever be other money, you know what I mean? And I have to plan it that way, and just plan as best I can.
Thanks. And then you have student return they have to return the device back, you know, just to get it to school or they move to another district.
Like a device return?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So this is our prime time for that right now. So this, we have an entire procedure, workflow, documentation. And yeah, what happens is at the end of school, all the devices are checked back in. There is a plastic bag that they go in. And so each child's device remains encapsulated in that plastic bag until they come back the next year. And so there's a return slip that's signed on it, so that you basically almost have a chain of custody that says, you know, this is that child's device. And so it stays safe and allows us to, one, it allows us to do an annual audit to be in compliance with the DCF and all the other different things that we did for funding, so that not only do we touched the device, but it also says, okay, this device was damaged, it was broken, this thing is wrong with it. Our system that we have allows us to create an entire inventory report, and that's how we know how to invoice. So like, you know, they may not always say, hey, I smashed the screen. That's how we know that. And so we've been running that program now for the last 3 years. And so it's been going very well.
Remember the last time they gave years ago, they gave you a little Wi-Fi, the hotspot and stuff?
Yes, the hotspots, yep.
Are they returned back or the students stay with that?
So the way ECF is funded for that is, as long as it doesn't change, is that when they stop working, you know, we are to collect those devices back. But it's more like the way the federal government had done that in ECF is that we're accountable for them and we monitor them, maintain them, but they stay with the kids, because that's the whole point of ECF, is to make sure that they have internet connectivity. It's to close the digital gap, you know? And so the state of Connecticut also gave us an entire gigantic fleet of those, but they ended the funding for that. So those ones are dead now. But what's nice is that, you know, if ECF, and I hope we get funded, does that again, then we'll be fine for another year. We're at the very final days of finding out whether we'll get funded again. But if not, then they will just stop working.
If it's not working, yeah, just have to return it back, or there's not a way just so they can use it anymore.
Oh, I mean, honestly, we really haven't broached that topic. I mean, is it possible for that to happen? Sure. I mean, it's not within our technology plan right now to be able to fund that beyond ECF, because I don't really think it's a sustainable thing for us. But that doesn't mean that devices can't be used. So that would have to be a conversation with the superintendent and the CFO.
Thank you. No more question, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Casimir?
Yes, hi. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just one quick question because I want to have respect for the next speaker, and I see that you guys have a full agenda tonight. So I just wanted to ask you how often do you, because our Bridgeport Public Schools children are so intelligent, how often do you come across a child or children who actually break through your firewalls?
That's a loaded question. So the answer is we have 5 levels of security, and I don't want to necessarily advertise that in greater detail, obviously publicly, but suffice it to say, we hopefully catch them on one of those layers of security. Knock on wood, yet we have not had that happen. So we'll just keep our fingers crossed. But as of right now, I would say due to the generous, funding of ESSER and ARC and, obviously the districts, we've been able to have that addressed in a very, very meaningful way.
Excellent. Thank you. And I just wanted to say thank you for all your hard work. This is a thankless job, and I don't know where we would be without IT. So thank you again. I appreciate your presentation.
It's my pleasure. I'm doing this for the kids. That's what it's all about for me. So.
Well, there's no other board members. I have no further questions, but a comment. This is my area that I like. So I understood everything that you were saying on a whole other level. But thank you for sharing, and we appreciate the work that you do for the district.
Thank you for
your team.
Appreciate it.
Mr.
Yes,
Sure.
Your normal comparison is a 4-to-1.
Yeah.
I crunched a few numbers, it's a rough estimate, but.
I look at it from the perspective of that there's obviously different funding models and different objectives. It's helpful to.
They're ahead of us on everything.
I'm thankful for what we have,
Thankful for what you've been able to do.
Well, thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
No problem.
All right, our next presentation is psychology. Good evening, I'm Frances Infante. I'm the Director of Psychological Services. Oh, Lord Jesus, psychological. I know. And I'm also the due process coordinator and chief custodian of records for the district. So some of this may be a little repetitive for some committee members, but I oversee the school psychological services for the entire district of Bridgeport and anyone that falls within our catchment area, which includes children who attend out-of-district schools, private parochial schools, charter schools, not only in the city of Bridgeport, but in all other cities, as well as any student that attends inter-district magnet schools, in which we are the local education agency for those children. So as Director of Psychological Services, I provide clinical supervision to the school psychologists that we have in the district. A lot of our school psychologists have national certification, which requires them to have 2 hours of supervision a month to making sure that they're keeping up with best practice. That allows me also to touch base with every psychologist regarding what's going on in every one of the buildings that they're servicing. I coordinate evaluations for students that fall under the Bridgeport catchment area, but don't attend Bridgeport schools, as I mentioned. And I also, one of my larger jobs is ordering of psychological assessment instruments. These assessment instruments have changed over the years. As a school psychologist, we went from traditional test kits to iPad administration. So that means I work closely with the director of IT, making sure that we have what we need so we can provide these assessments to all of our staff. I also consult and collaborate with other directors, not just the director of special ed, director of social work, director of speech, language, and hearing and OT services, information technology, early childhood, all of the other departments, because we work collaboratively with making sure that we meet the needs of our students. Additionally, I also coordinate independent evaluations as part of the IDEA, work with schools, staff, and families in coordinating the evaluations and making sure that we follow all the procedures that we need to. As a district this size, we need to make sure we have a streamlined flow of handling independent evaluations, which is a growing process as I work collaboratively with all the other directors. Also, as due process and mediations also fall under my auspice, which means I coordinate with the director of special education services. I participate in mediations. I participate in due process hearings as part of the district. representative along with our legal counsel when appropriate to have our legal counsel there. I also work with the parents so that they understand their rights under due process and mediation so that they can understand what happens when the state has a mediation meeting scheduled. Chief Custodian of Records. This is a massive undertaking with the district, and I'm glad that I work with all the secretaries at the schools. So I work with building administrators regarding the maintenance of school records. We are legally responsible for maintaining student records, the general education records, for 50 years after the child leaves the district. So that means we have to track those down, and I've been working closely with Jeff and trying to track down old records. For example, I was asked for records from Eastside Middle School. We had to hunt down where were the Eastside Middle School records since. So it takes us a lot of work in finding those records. I also process records releases to attorneys, courts, and school districts. Some come directly to my office, others go directly to the schools, and I work with the school records secretary to making sure that we send the documents directly. I also work with the Unified School District, which is part of the state of Connecticut, Department of Corrections, in which we have to make sure we send those records to them. Newly this year, we're doing a lot of verification of graduation for people seeking employment from different areas, and also copy of high school transcripts. So between myself and the high school secretaries, we're working on all of that. And a big component is subpoenas, whether it's through the juvenile justice system, the Office of the Child Advocate, or other attorneys. We have a very strict procedure on how we process subpoenas, in which once we get those subpoenas, we have to respond in a timely manner with the legal requirements so that we are not held in contempt of a legal request for records. And that is, in a snapshot, what I do. As everyone jokingly states, it doesn't encompass everything that I do, but it's really the umbrella of those areas that I do as part of my job as Director of Psychological Services. Any questions that you may have for me? We'll go around. Ms. Sue Chamber.
Yeah, just out of idle curiosity, how did records fall in your lap?
It's been like that since I started in the district in '97.
Right.
And it's fallen under the Director of Psychological Services, if you can say the record.
So you don't know why?
Don't know why, how it happened, and it's just part of it. I think because special education records run under,
I can see that part.
but then everything else,
You started with all the other stuff.
everything else starts. But I'm pretty lucky, I get requests for school health records, and I collaborate with the Director of Nursing to making sure that we get those school health records sent out. Mr. Sokolovich?
Yeah, we revitalized. Most I asked, I forgot it. Deja vu. Few questions. How many staff you have?
I have 28.6 school psychologists.
28.6 service, and how many sites?
I think we counted them like over 60 sites when we figured out how many schools. And when we figured that out, I did not include our Birth to 3 transition program, which is a year-round program, and also our early childhood assessment team, which handles the 3 to 5 year olds who are not enrolled in Richmond Public Schools, and also the juvenile detention center. So whenever one of our students is in the juvenile detention center and require an evaluation, we're also responsible for conducting that evaluation.
Staff to student ratio?
It all depends, honestly. Sometimes it's one psychologist to 800 students. The ideal model is one psychologist by the National Association of School Psychologists. It's one psychologist for 500 students. I know the average in Connecticut is less than that. So there are some school districts in which is one psychologist for 350 students. It doesn't delineate between general ed and special ed. It's for students just overall.
So basically understaffed for a while. And some of those 28.5 are ISO funded.
Yes.
So it'd be even more understaffed when funding was out.
And I'm lucky I have 1.4 retirees who have come back to help support us because school psychology is a national shortage area.
And you mentioned like 60 sites out of district sites. I know we spoke about this before. You've got some psychologists that actually have to drive an hour and change to get to their students.
Yes.
So that's an hour and change that they're not servicing the student.
They're not physically in the Bridgeport school.
Sure.
So they're-
Okay, thank you, that's enough.
Mr. Bellingham?
No, go ahead. I have something else, but
I know you can make a report in my student family. Can you send me one staff, how many kids have to try?
The recommended ratio is 1 psychologist to 500 students. That's the recommended national ratio for school psychologists. Right now I have 1 psychologist with 800 students at our high school because of our staffing shortage. But that psychologist has gone above and beyond to meet the needs of the students at that high school. So it's a lot of work on the staff to meet the needs of our students and our families and our school staff, because we're not just a psychologist to our students, it's our entire school community. But we're working on it diligently and making sure that our students' needs are met.
I mean, for that stuff, because I know it's not gonna be easy. It's a teacher, his staff is very stressful, sometimes very hard to educate our children and students in the classroom. Imagine that person with 800 students, deal with so many different situations. So she had to be, I hope she had doctors to be get her very good.
We work collaboratively with our social workers and our school counselors, and we have a great relationship. So we bounce off of each other as much as possible. But yeah, it is a tall task, but they are meeting the needs of our children.
So you guys almost cover all the amount of kids we have.
Yes.
So 20,000. Yes, it's another way to understand.
We would say it's understaffing, but it's a national shortage area. So we're the nation, across the nation is a shortage area of school psychology. We're just feeling it a little bit more in virtual.
Yeah, I know, and it's but I'm worried that you say one students we found it right now. It's a lot. It's a lot. One teacher sometimes you got 25 or 28 students. Imagine her, she had to deal with different situations, different issues, different story, drama, or have to go to school, and the time she got home, she don't want to do nothing. That. And as a human, because we're not perfect, we're human, so, very stressful. I don't know what is very hard to do, but not bad for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, no problem. Ms. Casimir?
Yes, I had heard this presentation the other night at the Students and Families Committees. So she did a great job here again tonight, and I have no questions. Thank you.
Mr. Gellin?
Thank you for your presentation. Out of the 800, you said there's 1 psychologist at 800 students. How many you would say out of the 800 require, let's say, a psychologist consult, if you will? And do your services, miss any students that requires the consult, or is there a backlog of, students that may need it, may not get the prompt consults that you provide?
So the model of provision of services for school psychological services in Bridgeport is mostly evaluations for special education services. So our school psychologists do not carry counseling caseloads. They do see students as needed and will refer students to other school staff if they need continued counseling or supports or outside agencies. So our school psychologists are predominantly evaluators.
Have you evaluated all students that needed evaluation?
We're getting it done as much as possible. We are meeting all of the evaluations for students in the Bridgeport Public Schools. And when necessary, we have to request assistance from our regional educational service centers. The state has a RESC Alliance, which allows us to send some evaluations out to the RESC Alliance to help us get some evaluations done.
What is the percentage of evaluations completed, you would say?
So as of this point, this school year, we've completed 500 initial evaluations, 726 reevaluations, and we are still not done because for school psychologists, our timeline really doesn't stop. We will continue testing until the last day of school, and we'll pick up again in the fall. And for those who come back during the summer to do evaluations, we will continue evaluating this summer. So unfortunately, special education evaluation timelines do not pause because of summer break. We just continue working and trying to get them done within the parameters that we are allowed to do it under the BEA contract.
If you don't mind, maybe going through maybe some of the parameters. Are you contacting family?
School psychologists are, with my approval, allowed to work 5 additional days of school during each school year. So some of them keep them all to the end of the school year just in case there are evaluations that come up and they have to seek my approval to work those days. Many of them work on days during vacations to make sure they get the evaluations done. On days when school's not in session, they'll seek my approval to work with the student. They have to tell me who the student is, what they will be doing, and then I have to see the evaluation report that they wrote up for that student that they evaluated.
And from your assessment in terms of the evaluations that are kept to the end of the year, do you see any effect on the students that have to maybe wait for the evaluation or reevaluation to the end of the year?
No, because the evaluations go by timelines and referrals, so we're not deferring them to the end of the year. It's just that we keep them in the order that we receive permission to do the testing. And sometimes our psychologists use the summer to get a head start on those students who need to be evaluated for the fall so that we're a little bit ahead of the game before the school year starts.
Good, thank you.
Any further questions, sir? No further questions. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, we're going to move right along further into our agenda. Let me just go back up. Sorry, it's like not pages anymore. Okay. Our next one is discussion and possible approval for rewarding vision RFP going from VSP to IMED for active staff and members benefits. This is Mr. Ulysses.
Yes. Here with me one moment. That's the, we can start there. What you see on the screen here is just a rough draft based upon our last conversation during the regular committee meeting. And this is pretty much a draft of how we're going to move forward with the RFP process, your expectations and how we're going to have them moving forward. In the past, you normally just went straight with, directly with the city when it comes to the shared benefit related RFP. And we just went through the grading process and then brought this information to your attention. I created this draft for you guys to go over to see if you're okay with it. And then moving forward, if you're, totally understand the draft, implement this process moving forward.
What was the question?
Well, this was in direct relation to the last board meeting. This is pretty much a draft of the new process that was requested when we have a shared RFP that needs to be presented between the city and the board when it comes to our benefits.
I created this for you guys to review, to see if you're in agreement with it, moving forward, for this particular process when it comes to the RFP.
Got it. What I'll do is I'll ask board members for thoughts. I'm not sure if the board members online have a copy, but it should be in your portal. So if you have any questions, you can definitely look through your portal packet. I'll start with committee member, Mr. Traber.
Okay, so our concern at the last board meeting was that the vision, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
The vision contract, y'all moved on it in January and we found out about it in May.
Well,
So in this, let me just go through this. This says prior to the benefit contract expiration, so that would have been sometime earlier this year, January, sometime when y'all started this. And then you're saying, so y'all will decide what you're gonna do, either extend for 1 year or up to 2 years, or put it out to bid. Right. Is that what that first thing's saying?
yes.
Okay, so the second bullet, a draft RFP developed by City Benefits is distributed for comments to the City Attorney, the Labor Relations Director, the Board of Ed, Payroll and Benefits Department, and the Benefits Consultant. I guess, okay, so these are all staff people who deal with these matters.
That's correct.
And Labor Relations Director is you or?
Labor Relations Director, Labor Relations Directors for the city.
Right. So when do you come in here?
I'm the Director of Payroll Benefits for the Board of Ed.
Okay. So after you all have reviewed this, then you're gonna give it to us, you're gonna bring it to us. So when did you all review the vision?
Division 1 was reviewed,
In January, February? Is that January? Is that what?
it was reviewed and sent to bid in January. We didn't have any analysis at that particular time in regards to the savings on the vision benefits. But it was approved. The RFP is approved.
We're just talking about the RFP here first, right?
Correct.
But the RFP is gonna give you an analysis of the projected benefits?
No, normally when we go through the RFP process, we put it out, we just go over the actual RFP itself, make sure the language on it looks
Right.
okay before we submit it.
Right.
That was done in January.
And then after that's done, it'll be presented to us.
Correct. Before we submit it to bid.
So before it gets sent out, so in January, you would have needed to bring it up to the full board meeting.
Well, was what my understanding was with the previous meeting. Normally, we normally do not do that. We normally wait until we receive the actual analysis from our consultant when we receive it. We normally just submit the RFP for approval with bid saving, and then we wait then we submit all the analysis to Siegel to come up with the necessary bidders that we were looking for.
Okay, let me go back. Because I see Siegel in step 2, second bullet. So what analysis is Siegel going to do? Are you talking about analysis of the bid results or analysis of the content of your RFP?
What they first do is they take our current information with our current provider for this particular case of the vision. They take our current numbers in regards to our fees, any claim information that we have, the expenditures that we currently have under our current contract. They take that analysis, they start there, and then after that process, we're waiting on the bidder information to come in so they can do a cost comparison between our current.
Okay, so that's irrelevant to what you just said. That's what I'm trying to understand. This is simply the draft RFP that's being brought to us.
That's correct.
So the technicians who developed this, the city attorney, labor relations director, city, and yourself, develop an RFP.
Right.
Because the benefits consultant, I would assume, has input on the development of that RFP.
That is correct.
But that's all, just the development of the RFP. And then you're gonna bring that RFP to us.
That's correct. Based upon your request, yes.
But in this proposal.
Yes.
So that's what the third bullet is, that you're going to come to us, and nothing else is gonna happen until we've bought in.
Correct.
That's what that statement says.
Correct.
And the Board of Health, is this just a loose presentation for us?
This is just a rough draft presentation based upon your
Because
request.
this is the Committee of Personnel and Contracts. Just to be clear which committee you're referring to, because we don't have a contracts committee per se. Okay, and then after the full board votes for approval of the RFP at a Board of Ed meeting, you will provide the notification. So you'll tell them, okay, you got to go ahead from the board.
Correct.
And then when the RFP is finalized, it's sent out. Okay, so now we've got the RFP out. So that's all down to there is just development of an RFP.
Correct.
After the bid submission deadline closes, we afforded city benefits, legal does analysis, et cetera. The election committee, what's the election committee? And the election committee is what I would call a selection committee of the people that were noted in bullet 2.
Correct.
Of who's going to decide which bid looks best.
Correct.
Benefits consultant, that's Siegel.
That's correct.
Will request bid and best and final offer from the top bidders. When the announcement of bids and recommendation, that's forwarded to the board, the superintendent said, if you follow by condition, full board read the request form. Okay. And then city benefits presents the winning bid to the board of public purchasing and then goes to the city council. Okay. That's all the questions I have. Yes, Mr. Sakala.
Yes. Ms. Brown is now online. That's all.
Yes, no, for the record, that Ms. Brown had to leave and she's now participating online. And I am now assuming chair of the meeting for the board bylaws. Mr. Sakala.
Yes, and thank you. This is going to apply to we got a couple of contracts that are shared with the city. We got, I forget, dental, vision, retiree benefits.
Yeah, all of our benefits relatively are shared with the city.
And workman's comp.
Right.
Now, one issue I have with this, everything's great. Everything after bullet 1 is basically what we were supposed to be doing the whole time. It's codified here. But right at bullet 1, I take a little bit of issue with this because it precedes any board involvement. Now, if we're extending a contract for 1 year, we're expending more funds. We should be in on that process as well. We're entering into a contract between the Board of Education and somebody else. We should have a little bit of input on that. And everything else looks pretty much like it should be.
That and we'll have a contact with the board prior to any extensions.
Correct. We're binding the board to another 1 year contract. Even if it's in it, or even if we agree 100% of the time, we still need these things.
I'll update that and resubmit to you.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Banahan?
I almost asked the same question, but I'm okay, he said that's the thing.
Mr. Geller? Or Ms. Brown? I'm sorry, I apologize, Ms. Brown. Did you have any questions?
No major questions. I was just more so concerned of the process Mr. Ulysses had pointed out. When the Board of Ed is a part of the RFP process. I kind of, maybe this is me just thinking because I'm not sure how this would go with the city. I just feel like we're too late in the process in order for us to know exactly what's going on in the RFP process. And you probably talked a little bit about it, Mr. Traber, but I would hope there's, just a more clear understanding as to why we're third on the list instead of it being all parties at the table when discussing this particular type of item. That's just my thought.
Okay.
I'm thinking that with this updated draft there, you're pretty much receiving the information relatively early, other than the actual creation of the RFP draft. You will be notified prior to us even agreeing with the RFP being submitted to BidSync with the city. So there's a stop gap there that won't allow us to be able to do anything with any contract when it comes to a shared RFP with the city.
Did that cover that, Ms. Brown?
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Gallen? Mr. Gallen, do you have any questions? Okay, I'll wait and see if Mr. Gallen wants to ask something in a minute, but I do have one answer.
No questions from me.
Okay, thank you. Who decides? I guess Mr. Sokolovic's question makes me think, prior to the benefit contract expiration date, city purchasing notifies city benefits that the contract needs to be extended. Do they notify you too?
Yes.
Okay, so it's not just city benefits, it's Board of Ed benefits too.
Correct.
And then who decides whether to do that?
Whether we're going to go out for bid or we're going to extend it?
Yeah.
Um,
The election committee?
It's pretty much the election committee. We're normally looking to always go out to bid to try to get the best, cost. We really don't try to extend a contract unless it's an emergency. For the most part, we're always trying to get the best cost that's going to, be effective for the city and the board, since we are sharing the benefit. We're members of the, Teachers Retirement Board and CMERS, depending on if you're a certified or a non-certified staff member. So, once the contracts are actually up, we're trying to, get our, the best cost for the employees and for the district life.
But none of this applies to what you just said, does it?
No, this is just going over the process of when you would like to see the
No,
RFP.
your comment about the teacher benefits. That doesn't apply to this.
No.
At all.
No.
So that's not relevant here at all.
No.
Okay. Because those are separate. This is involving benefits that are employees that are in bargaining units that work both in the city and in the Board of Ed, for the Board of Ed.
Correct.
Okay. So, and your list was complete: dental, vision, retirees, and workers' comp. Is there anything else on that list?
No.
And so the question, we're going to add a note that says these contracts are up. That's what Mr. Skalovic was asking for. So that when a contract is about to expire, you're going to present to the board that, what is there I'm blanking on the name. Is there a notification time frame? 90 days, 60 days, 120 days?
It's normally between 3 to 6 months prior to
I
the
would think,
contract.
because an RFP takes 3 months.
Yeah, it's normally a 3 to 6 months, 6 month window.
Okay. And so 3 to 6 months before any of these benefits expire, you're going to let us know, present to us your thoughts on, what should be done. And we're going to make a decision whether we proceed the way you recommend. And then with regard to these being shared benefits, I know that when I participated years ago in the Joint City and Board of Ed Committee, Management and Union, there was, well, there was much discussion about who costs how much. So how is it that you monitor, or we monitor, whether the shared costs are being shared appropriately?
Well, for this vision RFP, it's different, when it comes to the actual cost, because this cost is absorbed. The employee doesn't have any out-of-pocket costs for this. This is picked up by the city and the board based upon fees that are associated with this particular RFP. And I have a breakdown that I presented, brought to your attention here, which shows the budget cost with the DOE, which is associated in the blue columns. And then you have the city budget. It was all based upon the actual head count. The city head count in the division RFP was 1,166 active members, and the BOE had 1,008 active members on the division RFP.
So there's no usage that drives it.
Well, claims can affect the actual cost, but this is all based upon projections. I can't give you a hard standing number when it comes to if it's going to affect the actual overall cost with, like, I can't really predict the actual savings.
Well, I understand that with regard to your projections. I'm asking about monitoring usage. Like this past year, are you monitoring, did the city double the number of claims that we submitted, monitor the claims for use?
No, we just monitor the actual, the overall cost and the savings that we can get from the actual contract. VSP, with this particular breakdown that we received from Siegel, with their offer, they weren't giving us any concessions, any rebates or any concessions with their cost. And that's the main reason why we made the decision to move to IMED, is because of the network utilization was going to change that much, as well as the overall cost that the city and board was going to receive based upon the projected fees and claims information and the overall fees that they're offering for the district. And this can be seen on page 7 of the Siegel breakdown that I gave to you. If you look at column under VSP, best and final offer, if you look under the current year for 2023, which we're currently under, we're currently paying 59 cents per person. That's a BOE and city cost. It's the same price when it comes to the fees per person. We're also paying an additional $4.97 when it comes to the projected claims. This is just a projection. That together, if you look at the spreadsheet provided, comes to a total of $5.56. This is the second section of the spreadsheet. If you go down to where it says active members, you'll see VSP fees and projected claims per month. That would be that $5.56 represents the $4.97 and the 59 cents that VSP will be charging.
VSP being current.
That's our current provider. And then when you look at the one that we chose after our evaluation with the IMED, they're charging us 39 cents. They will be charging us 39 cents with the projected amount of $4.03 for the projected claims, projected fees and claims per month per employee. That comes to a total of $4.42. So if you take, what I did was for the current year, since we're not going to go live this July 1st, and we're hoping to push it back to 9/1. The projected savings for the remaining calendar year within 2023 will be for the remaining 4 months. We would project to save about $4,596 $4,596 based upon switching to IMED from PSP.
I have a question about page 7. because you provided us a boatload of information, in this package. Am I reading this right? The 3-year total cost? On page 7. Member cost, 230,000? Here. I'm just looking at what is member cost?
Well, this is claims and fees. That would be out of pocket costs, estimated out of pocket costs for the employees. Yes,
And so the city cost is 377.
correct,
And so with IMED, you're gonna go in and come in at 300.
correct. So we would be saving a total over the 3-year period by switching of this is projection of $77,000.
Okay, so NVA is another bidder,
Mhm.
and why didn't you pick them?
We didn't pick them because of their utilization. Their network didn't really fit our network. We definitely looked at their cost, but, we're picking them and it wouldn't have been, our members wouldn't have been able to use the benefit if we used NVA.
And they have a contractual requirement that has to be comparable coverage.
Correct.
I don't have any other questions. Mrs. Halliburton, Mr. Donahan, Mr. Gillen, anybody else? Mrs. Brown, anybody else have questions?
Yeah, just a quick.
Sorry.
No, no worries. Yeah, just a quick question. Now, if the city side uses, like 80% of the city side uses classes, that'll only affect the city side budget
Yes.
and vice versa.
The budgets are established separately for.
Right. So this is unlike the other contracts we mentioned, but we got flush out a plus before and equally distributed, like the insurance is a little different.
Yeah, when it comes to the other insurance, it's a little different, because each bargaining unit has different cost share that they're responsible, the employee has a different cost share, and the city has a different level of cost share that's responsible based upon the bargaining unit, and that all fluctuates per unit.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and one more thing, I'm sorry. When do you need this approved by?
I'm hoping to have this approved as soon as possible, so I've already spoken with the city, they're gonna push, we're not gonna go to 7/1 go live date, we're gonna push it back to 9/1. We also have the same 9/1 date for the dental as well. Right now, the dental RFP was approved and sent out already. This is prior to us establishing our new set of processing when it comes to shared RFPs. But I don't have any analysis to provide at the moment other than it was submitted, it was sent to BidSync, the actual RFP itself, but there's no data when it comes to, we haven't done any surveys, we haven't done any scoring on any of the bidders yet. We're still collecting that information. So once I have that, I'll make sure to bring it to your attention right away.
Okay, for the dental. That's for the dental.
Correct.
Yes, Mr. Donahan. Yes.
Thank you. Exactly, this is the amount every year, or every year the amount, the budget change, or exactly you think how much exactly the budget to have everything is done, not to be go back and forth?
That's
I don't need to give a correct number, but around.
I mean, it's an estimated amount, something that I don't really manage when it comes to how much it's going to be the cost per year. But based upon the numbers I see for the city, for us, we're budgeted between, from 2021, we were budgeted about 75. Now we're budgeted up to 80,000 a year to cover the expense. In the city, since they have a little bit more people, they've been budgeted from about, I say 108 to 115,000, just to give a rough number. Since they have, more people under, when it comes to non-certified staff members. But both the city and the board, we're not using the entire budget out. Whatever is left over is being rolled over into the internal service fund.
I have one more question that you just pointed out to us. That top line on your vision analysis. Says that we went from 74.4 to 78.3 to 80 in terms of budgeted. The city didn't change in 21, 22 other than a few $100. How could that happen?
I don't know. That's something that I don't really, Board of Finance or CFO might be able to provide more information. Marlon CFO might be able to provide some information on that when it comes to the budget projection. But it's just really just, an amount that's determined, to make sure that we have enough funds to cover. It's an estimation to cover what expenses that we believe.
Oh, right, that's the budgeted amount, not the expended. So the expended would be the next, which they went down. How did they go down and we go up? Oh, no, we both went down. I see. We went down a lot. Okay. All right, well, that's good. Okay, I see. I think I understand. Any other questions? Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
not a question, but basically suggestion need to make a motion to.
Well, that's where I was getting to. But I appreciate that. We are going to approve, this is on as a well, I guess the question, Mr. Scully, would be, first is this RFP process item on the agenda.
Right.
So given that we're going to modify it, do you want to approve it or do we wait till the next committee meeting, which would be next year? And I think we want to probably approve it with the modification that there'd be a new bullet on the outset for you to give us prior notice that you're going to be putting these out to bid.
Yeah,
So we would approve
Yeah,
this
what-
draft,
right.
subject to the amendment that we discussed of adding a bullet.
Do you
Yeah,
want
okay.
to, hold up the approval moving forward with this?
I'm not dealing with this because the first item on the agenda is this. So that's what I'm dealing
Yeah,
with.
it can't hurt, but I really don't see anything on here, even with the amendment that we shouldn't have been doing anyway, that's already codified, but
Well, so do I have a motion that we add? Yes, I'm being clear. Do I have a motion that we want to approve this RFP process with the additional first bullet that you will notify us 3 to 6 months in advance of when contracts are coming up for review? Bobby, can I have, Ms. Brown, can I have such a motion?
Yes, you might just need to repeat it because I was trying to write it down.
The motion is that we approve the RFP process as presented with an additional bullet 1 that says that Mr. Grant will notify the board 3 to 6 months in advance of any benefit contracts that need to be reviewed.
All right. I motion to approve the RFP process as presented with bullet number 1 to have a 3 to 6 months
Notice.
notice in order to approve the RFP. Is that what we're saying?
Notice to advise us of,
No. Okay. Notice to advise us on the RFP process.
okay, I second that. Any discussion?
No.
I have one question. Sorry. Any reason why we're choosing the time frame 3 to 6 months as opposed to 6 months?
Because Mr. Grant said that was the approximate time frame for them to begin review and analysis of whether or not they were going to go through this process.
Copy. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion passes to approve the RFP process as amended. Next item on the agenda is discussion and possible approval on the RFP for the dental carrier. We have that in front of us,
Dental.
the RFP.
The RFP, still not about, I think it's shared. Yeah, I think we want to approve this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not on the, hold on one second. I'm reading the agenda, which I'm trying to use your method there. Not keeping track of both, and it keeps slipping.
You can leave it there for now.
Is it included in the vision package?
I didn't see it as that. It says, possible approval for, I bet.
You see it?
Yeah, no, I can see it now. I thought it was the RFP first. Okay, so then we have next on the agenda, the approval for awarding vision RFP going from VSP to IMED for our active staff member benefits. Any questions or discussions on this?
No. Yes, oh, sorry.
Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown first. Ms. Brown.
I'm good.
Mr. Sakalovich?
Be clear, we're moving, we presented to the full board, not to.
Right.
Right now, so.
I assume that's what the committee still is presenting it to the full board.
That's what seeing as this process happened before with the city, they need to be clear that it's not approved until the full.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Coughlin. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I'll take a motion, Ms. Brown, to approve the vision benefits. Bring vision from VSP to IMED for our active staff.
I make a motion to present this to the full board for possible approval for awarding vision RFP going from VSP to IMED for our active staff members' benefits.
I second that motion. Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that's approved. And next on the agenda, we have dental. Sam, do you have dental? Is that why he's pointing up?
What's it? Okay, here we go. I got it. Got it.
Is dental not in the packet?
Oh,
Right into the vision.
yeah, just they all blend together. Yes. Request for proposal specifications. So, Ms. Brown, you make a motion to approve for this committee approves and recommends to the board.
Sure.
Approval of dental care, this RFP for the dental carrier.
Sure. I make a motion to push this forward for approval for the RFP on our dental carrier.
I second that motion. Now, any questions or discussion? Bobby, Ms. Brown, sorry.
No questions.
Mr. Scully?
Yes, how does this differ from the optical benefits as far as usage?
I don't have those figures, ready today. Now that we have, the approval to move forward, check with the city, see where we expand with our analysis with Siegel, and I'll be able to provide that information to the board. I know that we're at the end of the year, so I'm not sure if we'll be able to meet over the summer, possibly prior to the beginning of the school year. Is that a possibility?
Chair. Chair.
I didn't hear the question.
We should be receiving some analysis from our benefit consultant Siegel sometime next month, which will probably be after the end of the school year. I was hoping possibly that the board could possibly meet sometime in the summer so we can have, we can properly have the approval with the RFP, once we have all the bidders in tow.
So what I would suggest is that once a deadline or at least an understanding of when this will be, I can see what our committee members' availability is. Just want to be mindful and respectful of their, their vacations or whatever they may have set up. What I can do is also see, we do have a meeting that's taking place in June. That this could potentially go on one of our special meetings that we are looking to have, if it is within that time frame. I personally am not going to make any promises because you right now don't have a specific deadline as to when it's going to be available for that meeting. So if you can just keep me in the loop so I can let the committee know and see where we fall calendar wise.
Absolutely. We expect to have a finalization for 9/1 date as well for this particular RFP. So I'm hoping to have this information relatively soon.
Okay, and I'm just going to reiterate what's already been reiterated amongst the board. It's just time is important for all committee assignments. So I'm just hoping that with this new thing that we just adopted, that we be mindful of time frames in which things need to be approved by the full board or push to the full board, because it makes our jobs just a little bit difficult when it comes to calendar to making sure things get on agendas in appropriate time manners.
Absolutely. Are there any other questions or comments? I have a clarification. We are going to refer this to the full board. This is for an RFP on the dental. Right. But we have the RFP in our records. Right. And then if we approve it at our next meeting, which is June 12th, I believe, you're going to put it out to bid. I assume the city and the board will put it out to bid. And July, August, you're going to get those bids in, back, and make a choice, seek approval before 9/1.
Oh, absolutely.
We're going right away. Okay. All right. Do we have a motion can I have a motion to approve and refer to the full board on the RFP for the dental carrier?
I thought we did. I thought we were just waiting on a full second.
Oh, we did make the motion. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Yes. So now, any other questions or comments? I apologize, Ms. Brown. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstentions? Motion passes. It'll be referred to the full board. Thank you. Yeah. Next on the agenda is discussion and possible approval on Hill for literacy consultation services grades K to 6, $1.7 million for 3 years. Ms. Jenkins, thank you for your patience.
Yes, thank you.
Dr. Sorry. Thank you for your patience.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. Advance the slide. To provide a visual, I will orally present on the following bullets. The request for approval for Hill Literacy Consultation Services, $1.7 million for 3 years will cover grades K through 6. Currently, the Health Literacy Consultation Services are in the ARP ESSER plan that was developed. And year 3, in which we are in, is being covered by ARP ESSER funding. Years 4 and 5, which would be school year 2024-25, and school year 25-26 will be covered by the Connecticut Right to Read grant, which will be dispensed during next school year for us. So the Health for Literacy has been around for about 22 years. The acronym actually stands for Hansen Initiative for Language and Literacy. They design tailored in-service support for our teachers based on our current infrastructure. We currently use Reading Wonders, which we adopted prior to the pandemic. They've worked with us to implement that program more effectively in the classroom. At the end of a 3 to 5 year agreement, the Health for Literacy wants to make sure we have the capacity to sustain the systems in which they've helped us develop. And they've been a great partner considering we do not have literacy coaches. They provide external coaches to work with teachers in their classroom. Those external coaches also confer with principals monthly after each visit. During the 2020-2021 school year, we began a partnership with the Health for Literacy with some school leaders receiving training. Additionally, in partnership with the University of Connecticut in 2020-2021, 10 schools began receiving professional development in literacy. When we went into the pandemic and the ESSER ARP were released, instead of just working with 10 schools, we decided to work with all 28 using the funding. But initially, we were under a federal grant in 2020-2021, but that grant only would cover supports for our 10 largest schools. So using the ARP ESSER funds, we launched a 3-year partnership. The scope of the work thus far is around developing leadership capacity. So our teacher leaders, our school principals, we have a district literacy leadership team that comprises of representation from each school. The purpose of the district literacy leadership team is to make sure those systems and structures and processes occur across all 28 schools. Additionally, they provide support on the use of core and supplemental literacy instruction and resources, and they provide support for whole and small group instruction, as well as evidence-based instructional routines. The following 3 are the last elements of the scope of work. They support us with development and implementation of assessment systems, with benchmark testing and progress monitoring. We use that data to identify instructional focus for each child. They've provided professional development to all of our K-3 teachers on the science of reading. That includes 10 modules. And most recently, we've embarked on developing a plan for family engagement instructions. For example, making sure parents understand how to interpret a child's assessment report, as well as making sure families understand the role of the instructional routines with helping their child with reading and comprehension. The Health for Literacy has worked with several districts across the state. I'm probably lowballing the number of 60. They were a partner with the Connecticut K-3 Literacy Initiative, funded through the legislation developed by the Black and Puerto Rican Caucus of the General Assembly. So they've worked with districts similar demographics, Waterbury and Norwalk. And why the Health for Literacy? They've been able to help us with our current infrastructure. They didn't bring in something new. They provided external coaches to work with our teachers and school leaders, which fills a tremendous gap because we do not have our own base of literacy coaches. They've provided us with a comprehensive, robust system for assessment and instruction. They've offered PD on the science of reading. We've been partnered with them on a small scale since 2007. Often it'll be 1 or 2 schools. So we've been familiar with their work since 2007. And with the partnership, we have had significant gains in reading, 10 percentage points or more per grade level across the last 2 years. And they have partnered with us on continuous improvement. We realized that we need to make another change. The teachers are aware of the change to enhance the explicitness of instruction. We have a model school in the district that has demonstrated with that change in instruction significant evidence in grades K-3. So they've helped us to constantly examine our practices to strive for greater achievement. Thank you.
Questions? Ms. Brown?
No questions.
Mr. Sokolovic?
Yes. Why do we consider a 5-year contract?
Well, based on funding, we had enough for years. So hopefully, maybe the state of Connecticut will look at providing additional funding in the future.
2-year option on top of the 2 years.
I mean, we could always, but I guess.
It's a lot in price.
Right, in consultation with, Marlene, it was initially built in to 3-year ESSER. We got a 2-year grant from the state, so that's why it would be 5 years. And so when the time comes, hopefully the state will offer more money so we can extend, another 2 years. So 7 years would really help us make the change a part of our culture. The 5 years is pretty good.
Thank you. Mr. Bennett? Mr. Galen, sorry.
No questions for me.
And what's the model school?
The school that has been like the model school has been Howland. And Howland started this work prior to the pandemic. We've added on an enhancement when we partnered with the Health Literacy. They were already doing a specific routine called equity. Their routines out of the University of Oregon and the University of Texas Schools of Education. And then when they added on the routines that were initiated with the Hill, it just seems like their scores just skyrocketed. But we didn't want to do the same thing, like do double work with teachers initially, so we initiated the core program. But in watching how over the last 2 years, we realized it's something we should go forward with for the district. So we'll have our core resources, and equity would be a supplement similar to how, but they almost basically turned their triangle upside down. The majority of their children are reading on grade level and K-3.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? And I'm just.
Ready for me?
Well, I was until my phone just went back to the end of the agenda. No, I'm back there again.
I can make the motion.
Okay, go ahead, Ms. Brown.
Motion to move to the full board for approval of the Hill for Literacy consultation services for 3 years? Or should I add in the amount for 1.7 million for 3 years?
I second that motion. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. And are you on the PSAT, SAT?
Yes, I am.
Dr. Jenkins, you're up again.
I do not have a slide for this, requesting approval to pay for the PSAT for grade students in grades 9 and 10, and the SAT for 12th graders. The Connecticut State Department of Education pays for the 11th graders to take the PSAT in the fall, and then the SAT in the spring. We decided to discontinue the grade 8 SAT due to the fact that it will not be linked to the Khan Academy dashboard anymore. The purpose in the past was students' data would inform their study habits and trajectory on Khan Academy. Since the PSAT 8 and all of the PSATs are unlinked, that was one of the reasons we didn't see the benefit in grade 8. And the second reason is looking at the students in 9th grade, approximately 50% of the students in the high school are new to our district. So the school leaders in 9th grade in the fall only have PSAT data for approximately 50% of their students. In some schools, it may be less. So next year, we would not administer the PSAT in 8th grade. And as I mentioned, the state of Connecticut pays for grade 11. One of the benefits of giving our children exposure is that we can track growth across time. If we only administered in 11, we wouldn't have growth data. The state doesn't collect growth data for high schools. And so it would give us a glimpse of growth across time to administer the 9 and 10. And then it would give our students, before their senior year, 4 opportunities to improve their scores across time. We do use the data for instructional planning. We analyze it. We open the year reviewing it with teachers and school leaders to inform instruction in the classroom as a whole, similar to like an SMAC.
Ms. Brown, any questions?
No questions.
Mr. Skalvik?
Is this usually a 1-year contract?
It's always
a 1 year.
To my knowledge, yes, every year.
Mr. Benahan? Mr. Gillen?
No questions from me. Thank you.
I have one question. The State Department of Ed is paying for 11 because they're using that as their standardized test.
And that's the metric.
And we're doing the PSAT, SAT because of that. And our college is still, I know there was movement a few years ago about diminishing the importance of SAT to college admissions. Is that trend continuing or not?
I mean, it's probably continuing and looking at the whole child, looking at their recommendations, their service hours. Many of our state schools still use it as an entrance criteria. It doesn't keep kids out, but it does allow them to understand a student's academic strengths or needs. Many colleges still administer the AccuPlacer to know which level of math or English they will have. So it's just one tool in the landscape of data points they collect on a student.
I have no other questions. Ms. Brown, do you want to make the motion?
Sure. Motion to move to the full board for approval of the College Board PSAT, SAT for grades 9 through 10. For year. I said it wrong?
9 through 12
Oh, 9 through 12 for 1 year.
for 66,000 for 1 year.
For 66,359.25. I think I said that wrong.
25 cents. Don't forget that quarter.
For 1 year.
Okay. I second that motion. Any final questions or discussion?
Nope.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Are you doing food service for us, Sue? Who's doing food service?
That should be Mr. Steele.
I see. His
Good
light.
evening.
Yes, sir.
Good
Thank you,
evening.
Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you.
This is Keoma Steele, Director of Food and Nutrition Services. I'm here tonight requesting approval to issue solicitation to the full board for annual food service bids. This includes our commodity and food and commercial food needed to plan and execute the menu for the 2023-2024 school year.
Ms. Brown, do you want to make a motion?
Sure. Motion to move to the full board for approval to issue solicitation bids for the annual food service bid for 2023-2024 school year.
I second that motion. Any comments or questions? Mr. Sikalovic?
Yes, when do you need this approved by?
I would need it approved by the next board meeting because we have to put our food bids out by July 1st to issue the awards by August.
Mr. Benham? Mr. Gillen?
No questions from me. Thank you.
Okay. Here I have no questions. All in favor of the motion as Ms. Brown stated it? Vote aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. It'll be referred to the full board. Ms. Steele, and then I assume this next one is yours too?
Yes. Sorry, 1 second. I'm requesting from the board that we update the ED099 form. I was notified by the state that we have to update this for the new superintendent. It contains the names of the representatives for the district authorized to certify our meal reimbursement claims. Since the departure of Mr. Testani, this form has to have the interim superintendent, Ms. Perrin, as an authorized signee. And if approved, we're requesting the secretary of the board to sign on inbox number 3 of the form that we sent earlier.
Okay, can I have a motion to do this?
Sure. Motion to move to the full board for approval of the CSDE Child Nutrition Programs form for the ED-099 authorization signatures form.
I second that. Any discussion or questions?
Yeah, quick question. This seems to be more of a immediate need than the other items. Am I correct in that thought?
Yes.
So this needs to be ASAP. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, Mr. Gelling, Mr. Benahan? Then,
No question.
Ms. Brown, I guess, all in favor of the resolution of the motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. And seeing no other items on the agenda, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you. Second. All in favor of adjournment? Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night, guys.
Thank you.